All right, I'll go ahead and get us started then. I'd like to welcome everybody to the May edition of the Military Outreach Group of the Columbia Chamber. It's only been a short 3 months since our last meeting, but a whole lot has changed. So I know we have a lot of good information to share in this the environment of all the changes going on with COVID-19 and everything affected from that. We do have some distinguished guests I'd like to welcome to the meeting. We have General Beagle, General McCarty, General Grimsley, and we do expect to be joined by Congressman Wilson shortly. I know we have a lot of information to get into and share, so I'm going to go ahead and get us started. And like usual, we like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So I can ask everyone to please stand and place their hand over their heart. And you can kind of follow after me. I pledge allegiance
to the flag,
the United States of America, to the republic which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It is officially my first Pledge of Allegiance via Zoom. That is a first. Carl's going to help out a lot today as the moderator. I understand he is a Zoom expert, much more skilled than myself, so I'm going to hand it off to Carl. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Scott. Thank y'all, everybody, for joining us today. We really appreciate it. We are delighted to have such a distinguished group of folks coming to present today. A couple housekeeping things. For those that are used to this by now, but there is a chat box. If you have a question for anybody today, feel free to put it in the chat. We are recording this, so we will have this up on our website later today, but did want to let everybody know that we are recording. Also, if you're not able to be on the video, but you're on the phone, feel free, if you have a question, feel free to email apeterson@columbiachamber.com. That's apeterson@columbiachamber.com if you have any questions for the group as well. So I'm not sure if Congressman Wilson was able to join us yet. I know he's got votes later, but if Congressman Wilson, is he on?
Not yet.
Okay, well, let's get into it. We've got a packed agenda as usual, but we're delighted to have, I'll do the welcomes as we go through, but we're delighted to have Suzanne Edwards from Cassidy & Associates with us today. For those who have not met Suzanne, she's been a partner with the Columbia Chamber since 2005. They are instrumental in making sure that we are keyed into what's going on in DC. They help us tremendously. So I thought it would be helpful for everybody on the call today just to get a taste of what's going on in DC. So we can hear it first from Suzanne all the way from the Capitol. Suzanne?
I'm not quite at the Capitol. I'm about a mile north of the Capitol at home.
Closer than we are.
So thank you for your time. I'm going to share a PowerPoint that's actually is way more information than you're going to want to know, and hopefully it can get emailed out afterwards. To echo what Carl said, none of what we could do could be done without the partnership between the Chamber and the base and our congressional delegation, who actively works day in and day out to protect and grow Fort Jackson. And while a lot of the conversations we've been having with the Chamber lately have been on PPP and things that business owners are worried about, there's still a subtext of a lot of defense work going on in the background. So I'm going to put up a PowerPoint. I'm going to run through a couple key highlights, and then hopefully this can get emailed out afterwards. Let's see. Can you see that?
Not yet.
No. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. So just a couple of highlights. Folks who've been following the COVID legislation know everything that has to do with PPP, looking for vaccines, et cetera. There's also a fairly large defense piece, just because the defense backbone is such a large part of our country. And I think the general will probably touch on some of this. So the questions have been asked. Is there going to be additional defense funding in future packages? Right now, the House is working on what's called CARES 2, or also called the HEROES Act, which currently doesn't have a large amount of defense spending other than for the Defense Production Act. But we are hearing rumors out of the Senate, and I don't know if folks are hearing this, the base or local level, that services are being asked to provide shovel-ready SRM projects. So what that means is sustainment, restoration, and modernization projects. We saw these happen back in the Recovery Act, but it's seen as a way to get quick infrastructure dollars into the community and spent as a part of a larger infrastructure package. So right now the services are being asked to prepare lists internally. Some are based on things they've already racked and stacked. Others are going straight back to bases and asked. And I know that we've been working to make sure that the base is aware of this, what's going on. Clearly they have their priorities, help get small things fixed and bigger things as well. CARES Act has a great deal of money for COVID response. A lot of this is for National Guard, and I'm sure General McCarty will touch on some of the issues that are unique to that as well as for the Defense Health Program, TRICARE, and other things that we need to keep sustained funding going on. Many people have asked and they're concerned, we're spending a lot of money right now, up to $3 trillion plus. What does that mean for future defense spending? And I think that that's something that we as a community need to keep an eye on, because at some point, there's going to be a budget snapback and things need to get paid for. So we are monitoring actively how reprogramming is happening. The Department of Defense has not been spending money this fiscal year like they have, and we expect there's going to be a large end of year reprogramming going on. So whether that addresses some of the SRM issues, using O&M dollars to do other authorities, that's something we're going to continue tracking for the chamber as well. The omnibus reprogram is going to be huge. It's going to conflict with other transfer authority limits. And so we're tracking that along with our delegation. One big emerging issue that's coming out today actually is the final FFO, so Federal Funding Opportunity for the Defense Community Infrastructure Program. We've been talking with you about this as an authorized program for a couple of years, and in fiscal year 20, it was funded for the first time, which is great news, except the funding is only $50 million to be split amongst all the base communities on competitive projects. So DSIP program is intended to do outside the gate infrastructure that is compatible with military value and mission and helps the military family. The FFO that will come out today, we expect is going to involve or highly encourage a community match for populations over 50,000. Under 50,000, no match is required. However, leverage/match is a large part of scoring. Quality of life projects are the #1 priority. So are there base touching issues that are water, that are highway, that are school related, sewer related, that can use this fund to help get improvement. A new thing that came out of the project that wasn't in the legislation is that the projects must have the endorsement of the installation commander. And so this is actually something that's now being run out of the SecDef office as a ESPR priority to help drill down some of the licensing issues, quality of life issues, et cetera, that are kind of as our gates change and our military bases get more integrated in our community. We want to make sure that's done in a good fashion. There's a page on timing and scoring criteria, and I'm sure my time is running low, so folks can look at that. The one key part about the DSIP program is this money is going to be let by the end of the fiscal year, so it needs to be obligated by September 30th. They have a goal of having these countersigned by September 23rd. So what this doesn't do is gives you a big on-ramp to come up with an idea, think of it, get a committee together. What this gives an opportunity to do is think of some projects that are close to being ready to go, that already have NEPA and or other local licensing and zoning approval and are right there and just need a little extra infusion to help happen. Just today, the Senate announced they're going to mark up the Senate Armed Services Committee bill the week of June 6th. I'm not sure if that's the Monday or Tuesday, but we expect that we will be able to track through that bill. It usually takes a couple weeks for it to go out. The Senate's meeting a little more actively on committees and in person. The House is still figuring that out, so we're waiting to hear the timing from the House. Appropriations as well, which we'd normally be marking up the House and military construction, the military construction and defense bills in the House right now. That's also being pushed back a couple weeks just because of COVID and everything else. So we'll continue to track that for the delegation. And then just some backup slides, but I did want to highlight we have heard indications from the Army that the training barracks additional phase has been authorized, but wasn't included in the fiscal year 21 budget, is going to be paid for out of existing funding. And some of that is just the leftover O&M money, but that's also, I want to give credit to our delegation who's been actively working this issue to get it authorized and make sure that the funding comes out of existing dollars. So I know that's a lot of information. If folks, after they read through the slides, have additional questions, feel free to reach out, or I'm happy to answer in the Q&A.
Great. Thank you, Suzanne. We really appreciate the update. Congressman Wilson is with us, and Congressman, if you are there and can hear, would love for you to say hello to everybody if you've got a moment.
Hey, Mr. President, thank you very much. And I'm really grateful to be with you, and gosh, what superstars. And Suzanne told me more about Washington than I've known for weeks. And what a tragedy it is that the House is not meeting, except ironically, I do have a Middle East, North Africa, and World International Terrorism subcommittee meeting in about 10 minutes. And so, but we should be in person. And so I'm just startled at how Ms. Pelosi, who I appreciate personally, but gee whiz, this is wrong. We need to be there. But again, I just want to thank you all, and however I can back you up, and gosh, to see Phil Hamby looking so good, and then to be present. It's fun to be with General Beagle anytime, and I hope he understands that every time we have an Armed Services Committee meeting, that I chime in, that with the facilities at Fort Jackson, a general who was ahead of the curve for our new recruits and our trainees, and looking out for them. And so, General, thank you so much for your leadership, and any way I can back you all up, please let me know. What an extraordinary time for all of us really to be working together, and I look forward to doing that.
Well, thank you very much for your service, and Congressman Wilson was kind enough to donate some masks to small businesses throughout the Midlands last week. So we appreciate your helping small business guys as well as our military friends here. So thanks for being with us. I know you got a bolt, but thanks for taking the time to step in and say, hey.
Well, hey, even better, I'm going to have somebody important. The district director, Alex Morris, is going to be here. And so,
great. Okay.
And so he's going to take notes and educate me. And hey, in Washington, Suzanne, indeed, I'm really grateful to have Drew Kennedy and Major Jeremy Tillman. We've had really good people who there is one bit of good news, and that is that the National Defense Authorization Act is proceeding despite the fact we're not there. And it might be good because the level of conflict compared to last year has reduced, and that is good because it was terrible last year. So, hey, bottom line, I really appreciate our staff who's available for you in every way. And so now I'm going to turn it over to the district director, Lieutenant Alex Morris.
Great. Hey, Alex.
Hey, Carl.
How are you?
Doing well. How was everybody else?
We're great. Thank you. We appreciate you being here. You got any update for us?
Joe kind of covered it, and what Suzanne said. Sorry, I wasn't there for the beginning, but you kind of hit the nail on the head. We just want to remind everybody that we're a resource for y'all, anything you need.
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks for being here.
Thanks.
How about William Smith? William, you available?
Hey, it's great to see everybody. Even if it's on a computer, it's still great to see everybody. Send everybody greetings from Senator Graham. And there's just a couple things they wanted me to put out. One is the National Defense Authorization Act will get marked up in the next couple of weeks, and will hopefully go to the floor sometime before the 4th of July. And there is not any timetable right now for appropriations, unfortunately. And those are really the only two things I had.
Okay. Well, thank you. And thank you for the senator for all he's doing. I know we got Brianna on the line, not able to join us on video, but Brianna, do you have anything you need to share with us? Okay. How about Larry Ward with Congressman Clyburne's office? Larry? All right, and we've got Alex already talking. All right, we are delighted. Before I forget, I'm watching Kevin Schwedo on the line, and he looks so intense today. So thank you for joining us, Colonel Schwedo. We appreciate you being here. Our CASA.
I don't see your picture moving, but if you,
I'm delighted with us. And General Grimsley has just taken over and been sworn in as the Secretary of the South Carolina Department of Veterans Affairs. We are delighted to have you with us today. He is actually in the world headquarters of the Columbia Chamber right now. I'm not there, but he is. And delighted that you're here. So welcome.
Thanks, Carl. Yeah, I am delighted to be here. This is a very nice office. Matter of fact, since you're not here, we might just take it over and move out of the Brown building.
Take it.
That's pretty sweet digs you got. So yeah, I'm Will Grimsley, retired Army General Officer, 33 years in the Army. And I'm a Beaufort resident. So I'm a week-time resident of Columbia and a weekend resident of Beaufort. That's kind of the way it's working these days. But that's working out just fine. So I've been on the job since the 4th of March. That's the day I was confirmed by the Senate. And it's been an interesting time to jump into this gunfight. Not exactly how I planned to do it, but it's working out just fine. And so if it's okay, I'd like to take just a few minutes, lay out where we are, where we're trying to head, and then talk about how the military-based task force is integrated as part of the Department of Veterans Affairs now, thankfully, and how we're using all this to try and propel all of this forward on behalf of veterans, military members, families, and the communities across the great state. So my background, other than being an infantry officer, like Kevin Schwedo and Biggs and others, is I'm all about campaigns. So when I wasn't leading soldiers out there in command of something, I'm essentially a campaign kind of guy. That's where my staffs are. So planning and operations in a campaign front. And a campaign to us, people like us, is the arrangements of battles and engagements in time and space toward achieving a common strategic objective. It's an operation. And so I'm following the same kind of approach to take the former Division of Veterans Affairs for the state and turn it into a department that's organized in a campaign across a series of major objectives that are really getting after what we need to do in support of our constituents. And so the first thing I realized very quickly is I had a very strong, small team from the division that were heavily focused in the integration with the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs to do the things we absolutely have to do, which is benefits, claims, appeals, hearings, to get all of those things that our veterans and their family members deserve, that they've earned, and to get it to the maximum extent possible. So that's the bread and butter of what we do. Take a veteran from the beginnings of their service, from recruitment, all the way through to memorial. So we will continue to do that to the highest standard possible. We have a great team that works with Leanne Weldon over at the regional office on the Dorn campus, at the Dorn Medical Center at Ralph Johnson down in Charleston, and then in the headquarters up here. But that's not all we should be doing. So we got to do that, and we got to do it better. And so we're working on some SOPs, some software fixes so we can get standardization, so we can increase the amount of benefits that come back. But what we really need to do is broaden our fields of fire, for lack of a better term, open that aperture. Again, both in time and space, depth and breadth, whatever geographic or philosophical relationship you want to do. But I believe we've taken a much too narrow approach to this. And the gap, because of that, has been filled by a wide variety of people and organizations, all of them very well-meaning, most of them really great and organized, but there's no coherence right now. And I think we have some seams where things overlap, and I think we have some gaps where we're missing some things. So to that end, we are working right now in partnership with several nonprofits, with the USDVA, ourselves, our county Veterans Affairs officers out in the 46 counties of South Carolina, and some academic help from the College of Charleston to really work a holistic needs assessment. So I approach my business, in addition to being a campaigner, from an idea of holistic views, a holistic perspective. And that's holistic needs of veterans individually, as well as the aggregating of all of those needs. And if you think about it from health promotion, if that's a useful construct, we really need to look at what we do for veterans, service members, their families, and the communities across the pillars. So whether it's physical, behavioral, spiritual, social, or family, sort of the 5 traditional pillars, that's how we need to look at this, and then the infrastructure that supports them. So we are working hard to get a needs assessment across all of that we can then get a better intake of where our challenges lie. And in addition to what the VA does is how do we connect those needs assessed to the resources? So if you think like here out in Blythewood, Big Red Barn is a great example. So there are needs out there for veterans who are suffering from pretty significant post-traumatic stress or trauma, maybe some of them to the point of disorder. We also have homelessness. We have substance abuse. We have domestic abuse. We have lack of employment or perhaps underemployment. Those are all symptoms of challenges. But what we need to do is get to the left side of the blast of the symptom and start to address those with the resources that are available across the state, across the nation. And that's federal legislation, it's South Carolina appropriation legislative money, but there's a lot of nonprofit opportunities out here too. It's just getting a better integration of aligning needs to resources. So when I talk about a campaign, that's what we're trying to do. And I use the term of, I have a big old tent, for lack of a better term, and I'm trying to bring everybody inside this tent to be part of the campaign. I don't need to command everything. I'm about unity of effort. How do I get the unity of effort? And that's the guidance the governor gave me when I accepted the job. And that's the guidance pretty essentially that I've received from the members of the General Assembly with whom I've had the opportunity to talk, including at my confirmation hearing. So it's taking what the County Veterans Affairs Office are doing, what we do at the headquarters, what all these organizations are doing, and really try and apply it on behalf of our constituents out there across the force. Really get after the root causes and look for really results-oriented opportunities and solutions. So when I develop a campaign, it'll have metrics. Metrics is how I talk to y'all in the future. Metrics is how I talk to the General Assembly. Metrics is how we grade our County Veterans Affairs officers and their effectiveness. And metrics is how we continue to work after grants. And that's really how we do programmatics as well. To apply these out, much as we were talking about in the DoD appropriations, the National Defense Authorization Act, it's the same thing with the General Assembly. We need to line this out for the General Assembly out in time and space again, so that we can apply the programmatics to be able to fund these things, and where we come up with gaps, then start looking for our friends across the world and how we might fill some of those shortfalls. So I'm working that now. I'll reinvigorate the Veterans Trust Fund into being something that's actually useful, as opposed to the less than $1 million it has now after 25 years, which just baffles me. I've talked to Boeing and some other of the major corporations here to start to get some different people on seats to take advantage of people who really know how to do this. I just spent the last 4.5 years running a nonprofit, and for a very unpopular sort of thing in society, and we were able to raise $2 million a year. So somehow I suspect we can be better. Right. And I want to be able to do that and get that money in there, get a spending plan. So we really can apply other monies to this, really getting after things that we really need to get after. And then that ties into how we build into the military-based task force. So this is an extraordinary opportunity to get, Bill Bethea and Sandy, who's sitting right over to my right, you can't see off camera, and Dan Beatty and the other members of the task force, really get them aboard in conjunction with what we're doing and to push that forward. It is a natural fit. There's no reason in the world, well, there's certainly no reason in the world why we can't sustain the 8 military bases in South Carolina, especially Fort Jackson, the largest initial entry training for the United States Army, Harris Island, the largest initial entry training for the Marine Corps. We have F-16 wings, we have a lift wing in Charleston, we have a new expanded Coast Guard base. I live in Beaufort, where there are 2 F-35 training squadrons on top of the F-18 group, Naval Hospital. And then you add everything that Van and the great guardsmen of the South Carolina Guard bring to this fight. Yeah, there's no reason why we shouldn't sustain that. I believe we can grow it. We have growth opportunities here, and Bill and I've provided these to the governor for his Accelerate SC program. If you look at the fact that about $25 billion a year comes in from the military, veterans, and between compensation, benefits, contracts, what the bases provide, that's a significant bit of change that, by the way, is COVID proof. It's hurricane proof. It's tornado proof. That's monies that come here every day. Every guy like me, there are 125 or 26 flags that live in South Carolina. Every guy like me who comes here, we bring our income. We bring our defined benefit. Most of us are still in prime earning opportunities. Every one of us, that's an opportunity. So we need to continue to get one of us, sergeants major and colonels and staff sergeants and everybody in between. So we need to grow that. We need to bring cyber opportunities here. We need to bring space opportunities. You may know this already, but the commander of the U.S. Space Command and the chief of the new Space Force is Jay Raymond. Jay's an Air Force, now a Space Force 4-star, who's a Clemson graduate. He probably will come to South Carolina when he retires. These are opportunities out there. So we need to grow those. So all this is going to accelerate SC. And the other way we grow this and sustain it, in addition to what we do with our great members of the congressional delegation, is we need to continue to pass legislation here in South Carolina and bring businesses here that encourage people to stay. So S455 was passed last week, as you know, ratified last week. The governor will probably sign it today or tomorrow morning. That's the credentialing and licensing for military spouses. We need to expand that, of course, to take care of teachers and a few others, but for what we have now, this is a great opportunity. LOR, thankfully, and thanks to the governor, had already eased it for 90 days as a temporary because of COVID for for health professionals. Now's an opportunity to grow that, demonstrate that. That's an incentive. The military retirement exemption bill is still alive. It's in the Senate Finance Committee, and we're working, Bill's working this afternoon, as a matter of fact, to get that out of the Senate Finance Committee back to full vote of the Senate in this legislative session, so that we don't have to start over again, come next January. And there are others like that. You talked about DSIP. We have solicited out to all the installations for opportunities that we can take advantage of that. But anything that we can do to push this forward together, we have a wide open playing field. And thankfully, the governor's given me a blank slate on which to build. And so I'm building the team now. I got a great new public information director also sitting here, Brandon Wilson, who came from WIS, Channel 10, news producer there, and a dynamic young man. I have a training and standardizations NC already hired. I'm out hiring right now for a legislative governmental affairs director, and my new chief of staff will come aboard next week. Several of you probably know him, Colonel, now retired, Joe McClam, who was the deputy and a brigade commander at Jackson. Joe was also a battalion commander with me in Baghdad during the surge in 07-08. So I've watched him in combat, significant high-performing guy. So I'm very excited to bring him aboard. And we'll build the team, and Bob Caslin and some others have pledged to fill some of the 15 or 16 FTEs I need that I don't have right now. And we're going to do that. Veteran students, ROTC cadets, interns from around the state. And we're going to build this out. So I'm extraordinarily excited to be here. This is a tremendous opportunity and a privilege for a guy like me to be able to give back to my tribe, and especially to do so in the great state of South Carolina, where my family's been for about 300 years. So that's me in a nutshell. Over.
Great. Well, thanks for bringing your energy and your talents to this new role. We really appreciate it, and the state and the veterans of the state will be better for it. So thank you very much. Let me jump back, if I can, real quickly. I know we want to keep this tight. Brianna Bateman with Senator Tim Scott she was trying to talk while we muted her. So I apologize, Brianna, for cutting you off a little bit. All right. We're still muted, Brianna. All right, we'll try it back in a little bit. Dave Amira with the Columbia VA healthcare system is with us. Hey, Dave, how are you? Do we have Dave or Leanne on the phone or with us? All right. How about, we'll keep on. If y'all have anything to chime in, please do. But while we're waiting on them, let's jump into our military installations, and Fort Jackson is well represented here. General Biggs, how are you?
Good, Carl. How are you?
Fine, welcome.
Good. Glad to
What's
be here.
going on out? Anything going on out there?
No, just normal stuff. So I'll leave it at that. But real quick, and I know our time is short. Great to see all the team there, and I really appreciate all the support that we've been getting here at Fort Jackson, support and understanding. So I'll go through this very quick in 3 key buckets. I was directed by Susan, so I will follow her orders and make sure I get it right. But training, COVID actions, and then lessons learned and are moving forward, what we see going forward. But what I will tell everybody is, since our first positive case back on 23 March, we've conducted over 10 virtual graduations. Every single week, we've continued to do that, all virtually. The viewership is phenomenal, about 100,000 views every single week, and that's been very consistent. So what does that mean? I think going forward, down the road, many, many months from now, that's just going to increase the number of folks that come here because that viewership, being that consistent, is phenomenal. And we continue to do what we've been doing and charged to do under this COVID umbrella. We've shipped about 7,000 soldiers since that point in time to greater than 17 other advanced individual training locations with the 0% positives. We've not shipped a single soldier from Fort Jackson to any other location that's been positive on the other end, which is great. We also had our first 2 positive cases back in March. They graduated here last week. So in terms of just how we're able to handle those type of things is working fairly fine for us. We continue to use sterile transportation. If you hadn't heard that, what that is, and with great help from all the local bus companies that we have here, now it's about double that come here every single week to move soldiers that are in a close proximity to Fort Jackson to their next location every single week. And then with Columbia Airport. So we started the air movement piece about 3 weeks ago, and that's all going well. But we do the sterilization of all those, the drivers, the flight crew. I mean, they've all been just great, the folks at Columbia Airport, to make sure we keep it sterile so we don't send any positives anywhere else. And you can see the results I just gave you in terms of the numbers is gone very, very well with 7,000 shipped out and 0 positives on the other end. Our COVID actions today is we're right now at about a 50% scale or load in terms of our training load. That was reduced several months back just to ensure that we could do the proper social distancing here in training. We no longer call it social distance. For us, it's tactical dispersion. And so that decreased training load allowed us to do that in the barracks. So whereas you would have anywhere from 60 in a bay, that reduced training load allowed us to get that down to about 30 per bay, just so we can get the dispersion. Now we're going back the other direction because all of the measures, the systems, the protocols that we have in place are working very well, not only here, but other training locations. So we're going to go back to 100%. So now we're going to start seeing our usual 1,000 and greater numbers coming in every single week. On that note, with regard to COVID, what we're doing there is we test 100% of the new recruits that come in. Most of you know I can't give numbers of positives, but I'll tell you this. Out of all the recruits that are coming in now, we're starting to see 700-800 come in per week. So we know we're getting back to our normal 100% training load capacity. About 1 in 60 coming in is positive, but we have all the isolation quarantine bays, facilities in place. We take care of them. And then once they're over the virus, then they're back in the training. Our number one priority has always been protect the force, protect the mission. And so with our workforce, things have gone very, very well with regard to protecting that force. We have about 70% now that's teleworking. And then there's a greater part of this post you can't telework, building combat power. So we have a reserve that we created where we can rotate folks in and still allow them to take care of themselves and their families. We have a great in-house test capacity. We can test upwards of anywhere from 700 per day. Our backup redundancy is down at Fort Gordon. So if we need that, they have more scale at Fort Gordon, and we can ship there within, most of you know, about an hour plus to get any samples we need to there and then get those back on a relatively quick turn. We're still under limited access in terms of access to the installation. I did increase the number of days for retirees and their beneficiaries from 2 to 4 days. And so far that's panning out pretty good for us. No major issues. We also have the Moncrief Medical Home that's been in action the whole time. So they can go to pharmacy, do those type things, and no issues there. Over time, and I evaluate what services programs we're bringing back or how much we scale out on some of these every single week. So in the subsequent weeks, we're going to see more days for veterans, retirees, beneficiaries, and other things that we open here. But honestly, I'm in no rush to do that at all. We've opened 3 of our 4 gyms, and we're going to hold for a couple of weeks to see how that's working, and then we continue on and build upon those things. The last thing I'll share with you is the lessons learned. And the key thing that I've learned from early on in my career, a lesson learned is only a lesson noted unless you change behavior. So what we've seen is we've changed a lot of behavior. You will get your temperature checked at the gate. It's caused a lot of attitude spikes, but I think people are starting to get over it. You're going to get your temperature checked at the gate. And anywhere else you go on installation, you're going to get your temperature checked. You will have a mask on if you're in one of our public facilities. If you can't get that 6 feet distance, but you will have a mask on. Very easy for us. We can carry it in our cargo pocket. Anybody else just put it in a pocket that's readily accessible and you're okay. So we've changed a lot of behavior in that aspect. And I think that's why we're seeing the great results that we're seeing. Through our measures though, we see, things that are going to continue to be able to scale out and open and return to what we don't term as normal, because we're in an abnormal state, we term it steady state. And what steady state means is we get to a state or a point where conditions are such that we can continue our mission at the lowest level of risk. So we're returning to a steady state. We're not returning to normal, because it's not going to be normal, at least in our view, for a while, but we're able to continue our mission, provide what our nation needs, which is over half of our Army coming out of Fort Jackson, South Carolina. We've been able to do that, even under the COVID umbrella. We have not stopped, so we don't use the word reopening because we're never closed. So we continue to work our way back to a steadier state for everybody involved, to include our local community and partners. We've had no impact on local vendors or contractors coming here. A lot of work continues with regard to our installation work for our substructures, our roads. I mean, all that work has continued. Very minimal pauses with some of the vendors and contractors, but they've been here day in and day out working through COVID-19. And with that, Carl, I'll stop there and stand by for any questions now or at the end. Over.
Great. General, thank you so much. Thanks for all you're doing over there, and we appreciate your support. Dave, I'm gonna come back to you in just a minute, but while we got General Van McCarty with us with the South Carolina National Guard, and we'll roll right into you, sir. But this lets you know we have been thinking about you and your troops and the death of First Lieutenant Travarius Bowman of last week. But our thoughts and prayers are with his family, but also with the whole South Carolina National Guard. So thanks for taking the time to be with us, and look forward to hearing an update from you.
All right. Thank you, Carl, and thank you to everyone that's present here today. Do appreciate the many calls and notifications that we've received, passing on condolences to the Bowman family. I did have an opportunity this past weekend on Saturday to meet with the family up in Spartanburg, and we're making preparations now for the dignified transfer of Lieutenant Bowman back to South Carolina sometime. Anticipate the latter part of this week. Details still yet to be given on that, but give just a very brief outline of what we've done here probably since our last meeting. And I think included in our packet was kind of a summary of our activities, pretty much related to COVID now for the last 2 months plus, but we've been very busy with that, balancing that with normal operations to the extent that we can carry on and call things normal operations today. I think, though, as General Beagle has said, we never closed. We just reduced our footprint here at the TAG building and elsewhere around the state. We were doing teleworking where we could possibly do so, and we came up with other innovative ways to get at the jobs that need to be done with actual hands-on. We've actually seen some upward movement in our overall readiness in terms of our aviation, primarily on the Army side of the house. We saw some upward movement on the Air Guard side. However, they had a number of our F-16s off from the base in phase maintenance, so that created in of itself some challenges. But their commitment and dedication and some creative ways to get at the social distancing allowed us to do some things that were necessary to support operations in a COVID environment. We conducted a couple SC HART missions. That's where our aircraft working with civilian responders respond to some type of need. And for the most part in recent years, that has been in the upstate where we've had hikers or individuals to be stranded or injured in the mountains of South Carolina. Unfortunately, here recently we had a hiker that fell, and in the process of trying to make a rescue, recovery first responder from North Carolina, it was right on the border, lost their life in the process of trying to execute that recovery. So some sadness and tragedy and part of that. But we've got about 560 soldiers currently in response duty in COVID-19 operations. We're doing a number of missions, food distribution, food services. We're helping Horry County with the Department of Education, driving of school buses on prescribed routes where we issue meals and provide Wi-Fi or internet support to the students that are continuing to do their classes virtually. We're also working with the South Carolina Department of Corrections and helping them work at 2 of their facilities with healthcare needs there. We've also done some training on defogging of those and other type facilities to help sanitize facilities for the COVID virus. We're working in other capacities, continuing to support. Don't see that changing anytime in the near future. One of the things that's unique about this response, the SecDef, the president authorized the use of 502F funding, which still allows guardsmen to be mobilized under state authority, i.e. the TAG, the governor, but paid directly with federal funds through a unique association between the Department of Defense and FEMA. We have a mission assignment that was approved by FEMA that allows us to execute those missions. FEMA then reimburses back the Department of Defense for that. We're currently looking at a timeline of the current authorization by the president to end on June the 24th, and we're back planning against that to transition our folks that are no longer needed or deemed to be necessarily needed to support the COVID off mission altogether. However, most of those, I believe, will transition over to a state active duty order to continue on in support of those missions. That is still a decision to be determined by the president, but to be prepared for that, we will back plan accordingly against that. There have been 2 extensions already. That particular deadline corresponds with 89 days of being on duty, which triggers guardsmen and reservists into a different category of eligible benefits. That's a political question, and I'll leave that up to them to decide that. We will plan against it, though, to be able to execute the mission accordingly. In addition to meeting the COVID requirements, we're also continuing to, again, maintain that steady state to the greatest degree we can. We saw the 678 ADA Brigade leave from their mode site down at Fort Stewart this past Thursday, deploying to Germany for the balance of a year-long mobilization there. We just got word that the 751st CSSB and the 124th Engineer Company have landed back stateside. Their redeployments back to CONUS was delayed because of the COVID-19 issues. One of those were at Bliss, the other is at Fort Hood, and they will complete their quarantine and demo processes there and will return it back to South Carolina on a date to be determined. The 4th of the 118th, our largest deploying element right now, is still in country. We're waiting for probably a modified demob there based upon some priorities of soldiers that need to get back, but we will continue to monitor that and bring them back as quickly as we can. In the timeline, you can see we've been busy since day one. The missions have varied. We did have authorization for a dual status command. We never had to actually bring in Title 10 forces, so we never actually put that into place. One unique mobilization requirement that we saw here, the 263rd Army Air Missile Defense Command, commanded by Major General Tim Sheriff, was activated under a Title 10 order. They came on board to support our North in helping command and control federal response. They worked in 2 states in helping to set up additional medical capacity, surge capacity. They're now in the process of demobbing off of that order. We'll continue to transition back to a steady state using the governor's authority to bring back the South Carolina economy under his plan there, along with the president's. We're bringing by phase 1 right now, folks back on the job, both on the federal and state side. We will caution on the area of safety there, ensuring that we meet all the requirements for social distancing and the cleanliness of the facilities, or the ability to cleanse facilities on a regular basis. But we intend to have the workforce back online as soon as it's safe to do so, and we will continue, though, to practice social work where we can do so without losing any efficiencies there. We're tracking, obviously, some significant challenges on our state budget. I think everyone that monitors that realizes that the General Assembly has worked a CR for the state budget that will come back, I believe, in September to finalize and work some more specific budgeting issues there. It has had some impact on other things that affect us. The Joint Bond Review Committee canceled their meeting here recently. That impacted some projects that we have here that were already in some degree of ready for action. here in the state. We will have one other opportunity, maybe in the 11th hour, for some of those projects to be reviewed at their next meeting. However, we're planning at this point that those projects probably cannot be executed in the timeline that we currently had funding and otherwise the resources to put those projects together. Our Youth Challenge, Job Challenge program, we stood those down back about the same timeline that the public schools were open. However, last Monday, we brought as many of those young people back to McCready Training Center that chose to come back. We got about half of the Youth Challenge group back on the ground now, right at 50 of them, and about half of those for the Job Challenge. We're working again with the Job Challenge with Midlands Tech. We wanted to try to finish those programs. We worked with NGB and we're working with Richland School District 1 and Department of Education to get those in if possible this year. And right now there's a lot of positive indicators that that is going to stand up and be executed somewhat according to the original schedule with some modifications necessary to meet the COVID restraint. We still, though, are looking to continue to support missions overseas, where we've got some that we're working now in preparatory for missions coming up. All those, though, are subject to some degree of changes on the timelines, but it's our business to be prepared to support those missions, and that's what we're looking to do. But really subject to your questions, kind of a quick rundown, and those notes should have been forwarded to provide more detail of what we're doing and what we have done.
Great. Hey, General, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Hey, Biggs, while we still got you, got a question from the audience. Any idea when the base will be open back up, and more importantly, when graduations? I know it's a fluid decision, but don't want to leave with, there was a question outstanding, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem, Carl. Real quick, and then the one thing I've laid out in the town halls every week is, you know, we're not so much focused on when as we are how. So how is more important than the when, because COVID gets a vote. I don't think we're going to see any large-scale family graduations throughout the summer. It's just one huge variable that I do not control. We do not control here with that amount of people, 3 to 5K per week coming in. And I think it's a risk to the local community as well, because they're coming in from all over the entire continental United States and the globe. With regard to here locally, already explained the veterans and the beneficiaries and the retirees, that opening, that will increase over the next coming weeks. But with those that have access that are non-ID card holders for things like bike riding, fishing, I'm looking to have a discussion with my garrison this week to see how we can start, you know, bringing those personnel back on that do not hold an ID card to just do some of the recreational things that they've done in the past, which is, again, lower risk given what they're doing. So that'll be coming out here, if not within the coming early this week, early next week, the week after. Over. Okay, great. Thanks. Our cyclist friends would love to hear that. So thank you very much. Yeah, we want him back. I'm missing. We all miss him. So we're ready. That's low hanging fruit. So we just got to we got to get him back here the right way, and then we're good to go. Great. Thanks for answering that. Hey, David Murrah is still with us with the VA, and sorry we had a little goof on our mic. So Dave, you're here now?
I am, Carl. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you. Thanks for staying patient with us.
Thank you for your time, and great to see a lot of familiar faces on the call. I'll give a quick update on the Columbia VA healthcare system. As many of you know, we have 2 VA healthcare systems in the state of South Carolina, the Columbia VA and the Charleston VA. We take up 2/3 of the state, or actually probably closer to 3/4, and the Charleston VA covers the coast and a little bit of Georgia. And happy that we also have the VBA here too with Leanne Weldon. But I can tell you, while we're all dealing with COVID, things have changed dramatically here. We typically would see between 3,500 to 3,800 outpatients a day. And we cater to 85,000 veterans a year. So we have a lot of people coming through this facility. That decreased down to 1,100 front end of COVID. And that was because our goal was to make sure we maintain the safety of our veterans and our staff. The way we did that, and the way we will continue to do that, is by making sure that we have universal masking. Everyone that comes on our facility will wear a mask. We will provide that to them. So we can make sure we can mitigate any transmission of the virus. We're also making sure that before anyone comes in our facility, they're asked all the flu-based questions. They're asked about traveling and exposure to COVID patients. We asked if they lost sense of taste or smell, and we also check their temperature. If they pass the test, they get in. If they don't, we have them assessed by a medical professional and make sure we get them care. The good news is that we are one of 4 VAs across the nation that's doing testing. So we have actually done 5,750 tests here at the Columbia VA, and our turnaround time is 1.2 days. And that's from the time they do the specimen collection to the time we tell them if it's positive or negative. And we actually are covering not only South Carolina, but also Georgia and Alabama. And we provided testing to all the state veterans homes. When they needed help, we stepped up to make sure we tested all of their veterans as well as staff. And we're right now testing another state veteran home in Alabama. So it's been a great resource. Our goal is to hopefully open back up June 15th. That's not a firm date, kind of similar to what you heard from General Beagle. You know, this is something we're feeling out along the way, but we'd like to start opening up more slowly. And we expect the majority of what we'll do on the front end is more virtual video care. We feel that's the way of the future. I think you talk to any of these healthcare organizations, it's a great way to provide face-to-face care, just kind of like we're doing right now. Sometimes you're just having a conversation and you get a lot from that. There's also peripherals that we can put on the veterans end that can check their blood pressure, check their weight, do all kinds of things that are very interesting from a healthcare perspective from afar. So we'll slowly open up in that way. We were only providing urgent and emergent care on the front end because there's a real issue with blood being available across the nation. And we want to make sure we did not utilize all of our ICU beds in case we had a surge. As I think all of you have probably seen if you're looking at the data from Johns Hopkins or CDC, we have not even hit where we should be peaking down the road. So we're being very cautious as we move forward. On top of that, I'm really happy to say that we've hustled again, thanks to people under General Beagle's leadership, thanks to many other great leaders across the state. We've had people step up to help us out. We had University of South Carolina Hammond School both give us masks. We had Nephron when we were at one time, like all of you, probably trying to find hand sanitizer. They stepped up. They started making hand sanitizer. And Lou Kennedy, talked to her one day. I think later that same day, I have a lot of hand sanitizer available. So great job by Lou. South Carolina Emergency Management Division, we were able to receive 5,000 face masks. South Carolina Department of Health, Environmental Control, DHEC, donated to us 1,200 COVID testing kits. That's what we use to actually do the state veteran nursing home residents and staff. We also are working on research now. We're working right now with several other private sector facilities, such as the Mayo Clinic, to do testing on convalescent plasma, to look at antibodies, to see how that can play a role in the future. We also are working very closely with other great community partners. I saw Nancy Cataldo on the phone, one of our great leaders. We worked with her and her team to offer 2 blood drives here. When they couldn't do them on a lot of these school premises because they shut down, they also couldn't use their blood mobile because of the proximity. So we offered our auditorium to host that, and that was a wonderful event. I think on both those events, as they state about how many lives you potentially save, it was over 160 lives per each of our sessions. And we have another one coming up in June. So a lot of great work, a lot of great commitment and collaboration from our community. And we're just ready to make sure we do things smartly moving forward and start to open up slowly so we can make sure our veterans get exactly what they need.
Great. Listen, thanks, Dave. Appreciate all that you're doing. Really appreciate it. Hey, Leanne. Leanne with Regional VA is on. Do I get you, Leanne? All right, we may have to unmute you. All right, well, we're working on that. Colonel Schwedo.
Says,
that
you unmuted me.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead,
Okay,
Leanne.
sir. All right. I think the buttons are finally working for everyone. So yes, thank you also, and appreciate the chance to tell a little bit about what's happening with the Veterans Benefits Administration. We're the part of VA that issues monthly checks for disability. We provide vocational rehabilitation. We process those GI Bill payments every month and get folks certified in their schools. So really wanted to just reiterate for the group that we had at any one time over half of the employees teleworking before COVID, and now we're at 99.5% teleworking. The regional office is still closed to the public. However, we still have a skeleton crew in there making sure that we keep the mail going, that the mail gets opened and date stamped every day and gets uploaded so that the claims can continue to be processed. We're still coordinating, for example, with Major Will Grimsley staff on virtual hearings to make sure that any appeal can continue to move forward timely with the Board of Veterans Appeals. Our vocational rehabilitation counselors are doing telecounseling, similar to what David just mentioned with telehealth. We can still meet with veterans through VA Video Connect or through other modes. We also have set up a chance for folks that come by the regional office and then they come and they see the sign that they can't come in, and they see some employees' cars in the parking lot and the security guards are there, and they're saying, well, why can't I come in? And what we have instead is a flyer, and we've been publishing it in various modes like our Facebook page, that we will call veterans back within 24 hours and do a virtual meeting if they wish. And they don't have to come to the regional office to request that, but we're going to, again, phone interviews and phone counseling for benefits. And so our 800 line has continued going as normal, and we have continued working just as many claims every day and getting answers to folks on their benefits. So telecounseling and telework has worked very well for claims because we have an electronic environment for all that paperwork, and it's just now getting in touch with our veterans and their families also virtually. We had a good news story where a widow showed up for her hearing with the Board of Veterans Appeals, and she didn't know that it had gone virtual. And so she came to the office, and the security cards notified us, and we got the appeals team on the line, and we got the Board of Veterans Appeals in DC on the line, and we helped the widow in the parking lot download the Video Connect application, and she still had the hearing. Just took us an hour or two to get her up to the virtual environment so that could happen, and she was very grateful that she still had her hearing that day.
That's good stuff.
I would like to share that this Friday there is a meeting also online with Dr. Lawrence. He is the Undersecretary for Benefits. So our Secretary for VA is Robert Wilkie, and then the lead for all of VBA Veterans Benefits is Dr. Lawrence. And if you're interested in joining us on Facebook this Friday at 4 o'clock, there will be a opportunity to also interact with him. He's been going from state to state doing a virtual town hall, and I'll send out all the information to Susan afterwards if anybody would like to dial in Friday at 4 o'clock and have a chance to ask your questions directly of Dr. Lawrence. And pending your questions, that's all I have for you today.
Great. Thank you so much, Leanne. Before I go to Kevin Schwedo, Kevin, hold on one second. I think I might have lost Martha Jones. Martha's been with Richland too for years. She's retiring effectively this month, and she's been a great partner with us. But Maria Owens is going to be taking her place, and does great outreach, especially with our military families at Fort Jackson. So thank you, Martha, for everything that you've done. Kevin Schwedo.
I just want to take 1 minute. I promised the Secretary of the Army anytime I got involved in one of these venues that I would bring up as #1 priority, and I'd ask you to look at it broader than just the Army. Right now, we've got high school and college graduates who are trying to enter the job market but can't. There aren't jobs available. If you look at our tourism and our hospitality industries, those individuals are jobless as well. The Secretary would like to remind people that the Army and all the other services are hiring. And the issue is talking to our youth. If you know or see of somebody that doesn't have a job, that's looking for a job that would make a good soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, or coastie, please get them to talk to their recruiter. The Army is having what's called the Army National Hiring Day on the 2nd of July of 2020. Its focus is to go ahead and get individuals to join the services. When I mentioned it to the TRADOC commander, that I wanted to make sure that everybody knew it was an opportunity to recruit, and it's not necessarily focus on veterans that were looking for jobs. He broadened the scope of it, so it will be a soldier for life thing. So whether it's hiring a veteran or whether it is giving individuals an opportunity to join the services, we've all got some of that responsibility if we want to continue to grow as strong as we've been in the past. Last thing is the federal government changed the date of the Real ID compliance. It used to be 1 October of 2020. It is now 1 October of 2021. That's all I've got.
Great news. Thanks for the quick update. We appreciate it. We're going to get back on our agenda. And I'm not sure if Colonel Gandhi with the 169th could join us today at McIntyre. Abu, are you on? He did let us know that he had a conflict and was going to try to get on, but we'll get an update from him next time.
This is Tim Dawson. I'm here for Colonel Gandhi.
Hey, there you are. How are you, sir?
Good. How's everybody?
Doing great. Thank you very much. What you got for us today?
Yeah, so the generals covered things pretty well. Here at McIntyre, we're still operating as best we can. Our top priority is to ensure that we can staff and posture our 24/7, 365 airspace control alert mission all the time. And incidentally, for folks' understanding and awareness, a lot of our pilots are commercial airline pilots that have been flying overseas to some of these areas. So keeping our pilots healthy and asymptomatic has really been a real consideration for our flying operation for a variety of reasons, you can understand. Our second priority has been to continue to ensure that our airmen are ready and equipped for worldwide taskings, and to do that we got to stay healthy. So just like everyone else, we've been taking some pretty stringent measures to make sure that we do keep our folks healthy and don't get in high risk activities unnecessarily. And then thirdly, our priority is to respond to any domestic priorities that the governor or the TAG or our state may ask of us, which is what we're in the middle of and doing right now. This being the beginning, almost the beginning of our next hurricane season, we're looking at planning for a perfect storm, an active hurricane season, a bad flu season, and possibly a return of a COVID season, all happening simultaneously, potentially. So there's a lot of considerations to go on in there that we got some smart folks thinking through right now. At McIntyre, we never did really shut down. We essential services. We do have limited access. We are still offering our normal essential services, but we did shut down a few things. Our credit union and APs on the installation, they never shut down. We just altered their operating hours temporarily. We do have an on-base fitness center, so we did close the gym just like the community did for obvious reasons, and we're in the process of working out a plan where we can try to reopen that there again. Air Guard support for the COVID. For the most part, we have offered up some logistical support to the Strategic National Stockpile, get materials out there, dispersed to areas where they needed them, a lot of PPE for our first responders and other material. But on the Title 10 side, the active component side of things, down at Shaw Air Force Base, they do have a 9th Air Force Task Force Southeast that they postured, and we do have some Air Guardsmen that are doing Title 10 duty down there as part of that task force on the Title 10 response to COVID-19. And I'm proud to say a couple of our Swamp Fox airmen down there actually got coined by the Air Force Chief of Staff, General Goldfein, and his Command Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Chief Wright, for the great work that they're doing down there. So that just shows we got some top quality folks working out here in our own National Guard. The other thing I'd like to say is we did participate in what was termed Operation American Resolve, where we put some aircraft up in the air and flew over a medical treatment facility to show our support to the medical responders. We flew over 70 medical facilities with 6 jets across the state on the 27th of April. And according to social media feedback, it was extremely positive. Lots of views, lots of posts, lots of hits. So that was a good resounding success. And more importantly, it was a demonstration that what we appreciate the folks out there on the front lines for this particular silent enemy, as it's been termed. They're doing great things, and we appreciate it. That was a small token that we could do for them. We're glad to do that. The last thing I'd like to finish up with is, and I may have missed this early on if someone else hit on this, but I'll speak for the Air Force only. The other service components I'm sure they have something very similar. But a state's ability to support military families is now part of the Air Force's strategic basing process, which means it is a real consideration for bringing new missions on. Our ability to demonstrate things like high academic performance in the schools, what just got passed with the reciprocity and, with the spousal credentialing, things like that, and all the other legislative efforts that are ongoing right now are going to play an increasingly strategic role in rolling out new mission sets for our installations nationwide. And from the Air Force's perspective, they have rolled out a framework. I do think folks are going to be working on that here over this next year. It certainly will get up to the level of everybody that's supporting the installations and the governor's office at some point. But that's something that's out there. It's circulating right now, and it's going to be increasingly important that all of us pull our heads together and really show and demonstrate why we're a great American community, defense community here in the Midlands. So with that, I thank everybody for your continued support and subject to your questions.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you. All right. How about Columbia recruiting? Captain Riley on? Okay. Michael, U.S. Army Reserves and 81st Regional Support. I think you were the first person on today. Thanks for being patient with us.
Hey, thanks for the time and thanks for the opportunity. I just want to share a few things here. So if I speak a little fast, just slow me down. Obviously, it's a challenging time for the Army Reserve and for everybody in general, but it's also a time of innovation for the Army Reserve. So this summer, Lieutenant General Lucky is rotating out as the CAR, Chief of the Army Reserve. And right now his successor has been named, and she has to appear, of course, before the hearings to determine if she will be approved for her nomination. But this is exciting for us for a number of reasons. Number one is this would be the first female to lead the Army Reserve. And number two, she comes from the readiness divisions, which of course, she'll understand the challenges that we face here. And she understands the functional commands challenges as well. So I think for us, it's a very exciting opportunity for us. She's a fantastic officer, a fantastic person. So we're hoping that everything goes off without a hitch. Unfortunately, our commanding general, Major General Kenneth D. Jones, will actually be retiring. So after many, many years in the Army, and the last 2 years with us, he'll be departing for greener pastures. So he'll definitely be missed. He absolutely loves the Army, and he's really helped the transition process from the regional support commands to the readiness division as part of the Army's overall restructure for the reserve component. The reserve shifted quite a few of our functions and our training events to virtual events, and the 81st has actually led the way on a number of these initiatives. So we all know about the battle assemblies being shifted into a virtual setup, But a lot of these functions that are normally face-to-face interactions have been moved at least temporarily online. Now, unfortunately, it's not going to be the replacement for everything, and sometimes it's not quite as effective to do things virtually. There always are going to be some challenges, but a lot of the things we've been able to do and develop some programs that will really help us extend our readiness and to be able to mobilize quicker. For example, the Strong Bonds, which is a chaplain-sponsored program, as many of you all know, geared towards relationships and communications. We were the first readiness division to actually conduct those virtually. And as part of the improving the access to more soldiers, more families, we were able to push those out. Also, our Yellow Ribbon program and the Soldier Readiness program, which encompasses administrative, legal, and readiness for medical readiness for mobilizations. These things have all been really valuable in maintaining a high level of readiness, knowing that we're obviously not meeting face to face, but as we all know, the threats to America and the threats to our military still exist, whether or not there's COVID-19. So it's been a fantastic opportunity for us to find new and innovative ways in order to maintain our readiness. I did want to mention that our maintenance and our storage facilities, our AMSAs, our ECSs, those are staffed by dual status reserve technicians. So they're wage grade and GS employees that serve in the Army Reserve. And they've actually been maintaining normal operations during this whole process, albeit they've been doing it with measures to protect safety, masks, social distancing, things like that. And they've also done a fantastic job. So that even though the situation that we're going through, obviously abnormal, but the operations still have to go on. And then the last thing I'd like to address is our return to quote normal operations. Obviously, a number of things go into that. We have a lot of partner organizations and we have to nest with them. For example, Fort Jackson and other installations that we maintain presence on, the DoD, Chief of the Army Reserve, the states. So obviously we'll work our plan in conjunction, and we're working that as we speak right now in order to have a seamless transition back to quote normal operations.
Yeah. Well, listen, thanks very much for that update. We had a lot going on today in a long meeting, so I apologize for going a little bit long, but we had some good stuff today. I want to thank a couple people right quick. Dominion has been a great sponsor of ours and supports the military. And so we want to thank Dominion for helping out today. Let me think, I'm looking at notes and making sure that I'm not missing anything else. Columbia Metropolitan Magazine as well for what they do for us. All right, I'm gonna wrap this up because we don't have any more comments. A couple of brief comments there, but I want to thank everybody for being here, all the officers. We appreciate what y'all do for our community, for our country. General Grimsley, welcome. We're glad to have you here, and thanks for your work, and we look forward to working with you in the future. On behalf of Scott, you got any our chairman of this military outreach?
No, I'll just put it out there now that our next scheduled MOG meeting is on August 25th.
Great. All right. With that, I'm going to call this a wrap. Thank you again for being with us on behalf of Susan McPherson at the Chamber and everybody else. Y'all stay safe. Use social distancing and wear a mask, right, B? All right. We'll see y'all soon. Thanks again, everybody.